What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a DLC review for Wartales, Pirates of Belerion, their recent pirate-themed DLC, which brings a host of new features alongside a free update to the game that changes it fairly substantially. It is important right here at the beginning of the video, though, that I inform you that Shiro Games, the game's developer, did in fact send me a copy of this DLC so I could make a video on it for you guys. Though, Wartales itself was a very well-received TRPG from earlier this year, back in April, and since the game's release they've been updating and changing things, adding a fair bit of content, but this is their first paid DLC. Though before we jump into the DLC itself, I do want to talk about the free update a little bit. Now, it changes a few different things, but by far the largest is it adds a new class for your mercenaries to pick up, that class being the Pugilist. This class comes with two different stances it can take, which then affect its abilities, which means every skill they have has two different variants based on that. And while the two factions, if you will, added to the new area, that is to say the guards and pirates of that section, have access to this class, they also sprinkled it in elsewhere throughout the game's other counties for you to explore and find. And while that is pretty cool, I do have to mention that right now it is a little bit bugged. Sometimes when characters of that class take a turn, that turn just doesn't end, forcing you to reload, which is more than a small bug, I would say, which is why I'm not really showing any footage of it here. Once that gets fixed, though, it should be a fun way to mix up the combat a little bit. That said, they added a bit of character customization. Individual mercenaries you can hire now have a few more cosmetic options, and in addition to this, the previous arenas and Roust game matches that you could participate in the rest of the world have had extra rewards added from their hard mode. Completing those modes will earn your troop extra titles, which will give them more damage in a specific type, making them more effective overall. Now from there, let's talk about the DLC specifically. It takes place in Belerion, the large archipelago to the south of the rest of the map, and in order to access this DLC, it can be accessed from just any regular playthrough, but you have to go to the south of Tiltrin County, where you can now find a ship being worked on, and after providing some materials for that ship to be fixed, you can set sail into the new area. Much like all of the previous counties you can involve yourself in, there will be a zone-wide story that mostly focuses on the pirates of the region. And you can be an honest, let's say, pirate catcher, or you can choose to become basically a pirate yourself utilizing the rest of the game's mechanics. This focuses around the Lords of the Sea reputation system. In the area of Belerion, everything you do essentially increases your reputation on the Lord of Seas board. As this reputation surpasses other people on that board, you can then fight them, usually in a ship battle, to take their place, rising through the ranks yourself. But in order to do that, let alone be effective, we're going to have to work on upgrading and fixing our own ship. Because while much of the regular content of this area does take place on the various islands dotted throughout the region, in order to get there, of course, we have to sail our newly obtained ship around. And much like actual sailing, at least in these kinds of ships, it is heavily dependent on the wind. The map of this area will show you the general wind direction of each portion of the archipelago, and trying to sail against that wind is going to be dreadfully slow, though you can put down oars to get through it, but this does tire your troop out faster, leading to more rest requirements. If you run into things or get attacked by other ships and their ballistas, this can influence the overall state of your ship, which will then have to be repaired at various docks. Your ship can be upgraded, of course, more specifically your hull, sail, figurehead, and ballista, which affect the general handling, speed, and resilience of your ship. The ballista in particular enables you to attack other ships without actually boarding them, though we'll get to that in a moment. In addition to those upgrades, you also have to crew your ship, which of course is going to be made up of your general mercenary group, and assigning the different posts of the ship allows you to perform different functions, like having someone fish while you're sailing, thus generating food while you move around the archipelago, or a lookout to warn you of oncoming dangers. Though what's funny about this in particular, and something I was curious about, is whether or not you could assign animals to these individual posts, and you can. If you're unaware, Wartales allows you to find and recruit all sorts of animals, and sometimes just generally more interesting companions, let's say. And in my experience, making the lookout my bear companion was really funny, and had some special dialogue on the world map to warn you of the dangers that a lookout normally would, so it's clear that they knew people would do this to some degree. Otherwise, though, sailing is mostly like exploring just about anywhere else. There are things on the world map here you can run into, like salvage, places to fish more regularly, food to find, secrets to find. You can land on the different islands and explore, of course, which includes all the usual suspects in terms of the game's previously available explorable content. But another really cool thing I wanted to mention before we wrap this up is the new sea battles. When you get close enough to an enemy ship to actually board them, you can fight them as you would just sort of any other regular turn-based battle, but the difference being that it takes place on this ship map. And these maps have the added benefit of your characters and the enemy being allowed to use the ropes on the side or just around the ships. This gives them a special ability, allowing them to go up in the air and board the enemy ship, or just kind of anywhere really, where they can dive down and knock enemies back. Enemies, or your characters, that get knocked off the side of the ship will then become hanging, where they can either be killed or knocked into the water unless a companion helps them back up, which adds a certain potential instant death mechanic to the regular turn-based combat. And then, once you put all of those individual things together, you have a DLC that lets you either become a pirate or put a stop to the other pirates, alongside a huge new region to explore. So, all in all, this DLC adds a wealth of new content at a price point of $20 US, and I think if you enjoyed what the base game of Wartales had to offer, then this DLC is a pretty substantial expansion to the game. However, that does come with a slight recommendation of, I would say, waiting a tiny bit for some of the more egregious bugs I mentioned, like the new class causing the game to freeze, being especially notable. But once that stuff gets cleared up, which hopefully won't take long, I think this is a great addition to the title. That's pretty much going to do it for me today, though. I certainly hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. Let me know down in the comment section below what you think about this particular DLC. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.